Hey YouTube, welcome to another stupid series. I don't know how well this constitutes as a stupid series, but I'm doing it anyway, so what are you going to do about it? So last night I went to a party and I don't remember the last time I felt so out of place. Not there was anything wrong with the party, it was just simply that I was about 10 years older than everyone else there. And there was a couple of other people roughly my age, but not enough of us to sort of make any impact. And I knew I was older because I couldn't stand the racket of all the young people. There was one particular song, I can't remember what it was, but every time in the chorus they were all screaming in this sort of, so the music would lull and everyone would start screaming. And in the end I turned around out loud and said this: everyone be quiet, think about the neighbours. I said that, think about the neighbours. I wasn't having fun, I wasn't lost in the moment. I was concerned about the noise and the repercussions. It wasn't even my house, it had nothing to do with me. And it occurred to me, I'm not 18 anymore, I'm getting older. And that's a horrible feeling, I've got to say. It made me think about, first of all, my parents, and then sort of more my grandparents' era. And at once upon a time they used to be young, and now they're not so young. And the attitudes that they have. Admittedly, by doing the stupid series, I already sound like a 50-year-old taxi driver. But I do also have the ability to relate to younger people. But not that young, it seems, anymore. Now, looking at my grandparents, I want to tell you a couple of stories. So when I was about 12, 13 years of age, I went to Cyprus, and now during this holiday it would have been very, very difficult for my grandparents to take me seriously, and the reason for that is I came up with a game, which was that my sister would tie me to one of these plastic deck chairs. She would then cover me in towels and then just push me clean into the swimming pool, and I would have a limited amount of time before I died to escape. And that was the greatest fun game in the whole world, but admittedly for my grandparents watching this, it would have been difficult to take any opinion I had seriously. So we came back as a family from an evening out, and in the pool, all the bits that we'd left in there, things like my flippers and snorkel and lilo, bits and pieces like that, they'd all clustered together into one corner. And me sounding a bit of a swot, a bit of a nerd, went, oh, wonder if that's gravity that's brought them all together. My granddad snorted at this. And I said, well, I'm not saying it is, I just said I wonder, because I've just learned at school that gravity is when any two objects free to move will be drawn together. And he went, no, that's not gravity. And I went, well, it is, that's what the rule of the laws of gravity dictate. No, gravity is when you're brought to Earth. No, Grandad, I've just learnt this at school. You're wrong. No, I've just learnt this at school, I'm 100% sure I know what the law of gravity is. And my granddad was adamant that the only thing that had a gravitational pull was the Earth. And that we were all just pulled down towards the Earth, it was what held us here. It didn't exist anywhere else. And I said, no, gravity exists across the entire universe. Every object in the universe, down to the smallest atom, has gravitational pull. Gravity exists everywhere. You're talking witchcraft and nonsense, boy. We ought to burn you at the stake for talk like that. He wasn't having any of that. Ludicrous. Now this was 14 years ago, I reckon I was 12 at the time. And 14 years ago, we didn't have iPhones, so we couldn't just look it up and go, proved you wrong. I had to sort of back down and go, well, you're the older one, so you know. Well, I can't do that. So I think we had an argument for about an hour, of which my granddad had had a few drinks at that point, and he changed the subject because he couldn't win it, so he changed the subject to, you've got a loving family, just be grateful for that. You can't change the subject like that. The fact is, I'm right, just admit it. Now, I'm not 100% sure if I'm technically correct on the laws of gravity, but I think my point was valid, and as a 12-year-old, I think it was quite a clever point to come up with, whether it was right or wrong. My granddad had clearly been taught something as a child. Now he's in his 80s, and I can't imagine that the laws of gravity have gone through too many transitional periods in the last 60, 70 years. So he was obviously taught something, didn't really listen, took what he knew as fact. This is gold dust, I know it, it's fact. And has believed it for the best part of 60, 70 years and gone, well, there's a fact. So when anyone contradicts it, he's so deeply rooted in what he knows, it doesn't matter what anyone else says, he knows what he knows. He's had 70 years not changing. But then there's my nan as well, and she came round not long ago and loved my nan to bits. Around a few weeks ago, and she said to me, did you see the rainbow? Now, before we go any further with this story, my nan lives 25 miles away. She lives in Hove and I live in Eastbourne. And so I went, what rainbow? The big one, the massive one. Where? Where? What day? Specifics, please. In Brighton. And I went, well, why would I see the rainbow in Brighton? I live 25 miles away in Eastbourne. Well, it was massive. Yeah, it doesn't matter how big it was. It could have been the world's biggest rainbow. The maximum you can see across a flat surface is 22 miles. So, and that's on a really crisp and cold day. But if it was a cloudy day, we've got the Downs between us, which is a series of hills. How on earth am I going to see a rainbow 25 miles away? So I went with this. I went, well, how on earth am I going to see a rainbow in Brighton when I'm in Eastbourne? Well, of course you could. Of course you could have seen it. Well, how? Because it was that big. And I went, well, can you see Hove right now from where we live? And she went, no, but this was in the sky. And I went, yeah, but can you pick out the defining features in Hove from, so let's say we were to get high enough, could you pick out the defining features of Hove? I don't think so. So how am I supposed to see a rainbow? Well, you could have done. I can't believe you didn't. She was adamant, absolutely adamant, that I should have seen this rainbow. And it wasn't even, there was no point even laughing at it. There was no point arguing because she was convinced that I was wrong in not seeing this rainbow. She almost got into a strop on that I hadn't seen it. Not that I couldn't see it, but that I hadn't seen it. How did you miss it? It was that big. And the reason I tell these stories is that old people tend to get stuck in their ways. But surely that starts when you're young, and I've started to get into that routine of sort of older people's opinions. So in 25, 30 years, how am I going to be? Am I going to still be in that sort of rut of, oh, what are you doing that for? And then in 40, 50 years' time, someone contradicts me, they might be completely right, but am I going to be so stuck in my ways that I'm going to go, no, you're wrong. No chance.